4 of the 7 men are killed with single shots to the head or the heart. There are some 70 to 100 policemen on the road that night. Some of them are in the trees in sniper positions. And 2 men, my father and Ashik Jathoui, are shot several times, but they are killed by point-blank shots fired. Ashik Jathoui at the back of the neck and my father into his jaw. 14 years later, in 12 years later, in 2008, Asif Zaidari, who was one of the accused in the case, at the time that he is accused in my father's murder case, is also standing trial in 3 other murder cases, all 4 involving the murders of 11 men. Is acquitted in the middle of the 4 ongoing murder cases and ascends to the office of the presidency. He is made president in the same way that General Pervez Musharraf is made president. Pakistanis always say we don't call them elections, we call them selections. And he is called in to be president by his own parliament. And just if we can sort of jump back, I don't know how much time we have. How much time do we have? I can do one more reading, or we can do... We have time, okay. I have no concept of... I barely know where I am at the moment. I'll read you a section of that time, and I will read you the story of Ashik Jathoui's family. And Ashik was killed with my father. Okay, hold on. Ashik's wife, Badrunissa, was at home with her 3 daughters. They lived far enough from the sound of gunfire not to have reached them. Phone calls kept coming from the Urdu media asking for my father. Sabine, Ashik and Badrunissa's eldest child, remembers. When I would tell them that he is in Surjani town with Murtaza Bhutto, they would go silent. A family friend called the Jathoui house with the news that there had been firing outside of 70 Clifton, but when speaking to Sabine, then only 19 years old, had downplayed the seriousness of the gunfire. It wasn't till later that Sabine was told that Murtaza Bhutto had been shot and was in critical condition that she first began to worry. We panicked, she recalled. We knew Murtaza always sat in front and that Baba always sat next to him in the driver's seat. And if your father was in critical condition, then what had happened to Baba? Sabine and her mother got into their car to go and look for Ashik. Before leaving, Sabine told her 2 youngest sisters, Anushka and Maheen, to man the phones and keep the news of what had happened away from their elderly grandparents, Ashik's parents, who were asleep upstairs. We went to Mideast first. Baba wasn't there. And I should pause here just to say that all of the 7 men were left to bleed to death on the roads for an hour after the shooting had stopped. When they were moved, all 7 men were taken to different locations, and none of them to emergency hospitals. And this was part of the MO of Operation Cleanup. The streets were cleaned, forensic evidence is destroyed by the slag. So it was not the first time the Karachi police had done this, nor the last. Then we went to Jinnah Hospital, thinking that any police cases should have gone there. Amma was too shaky to get out of the car, so I went. I had to go to the morgue to ask if my father's body had been brought in. But as I was walking towards it, some journalist came up to me and told me that he wasn't there. I was relieved and I trusted them. We got back into the car and continued searching. At the same time, Sabine's uncle, Ashik's younger brother, had started his own search. Her brother, Anid, had begun his own search. Nobody knew where Ashik was or whether he had been hurt. Ashik's family were on their own, going from hospital to police station looking for him. We went to the Aga Khan hospital at the other end of town. It was far away, but we were desperate, Sabine continues. Amma stayed in the car and I went to the emergency area and asked if Ashik Jathoui had been brought in. There was a lot of confusion and the people behind the desk weren't giving me any clear answers. I described my father's build, his height, his weight. I told them that he had been wearing a black shalwar kameez, but they didn't seem to have a clear idea of anything. As we were leaving and walking back to our cars, I saw a police van parked near the emergency wing. I went up to one of the officers standing near the rear of the car. At that time, we still had no idea that the police were involved, and I asked him if he knew where my father was. I told him my name and said that I was looking for Ashik Jatoi, who was with Mir Murtaza. There's been an incident at 70 Clifton, I said. Do you know where they've taken them? I was polite. I had no reason not to be. I was so nervous and so scared. I just wanted help. And this cop, he was young, and he had a moustache. He turned to me and grunted, we've killed them already. Sabine began to scream. She totally lost the calm that she had been fighting to retain throughout the night that she had been out with her mother, searching for Ashik. I was yelling at the top of my lungs. What are you saying? I screamed. How dare you? But he stood there unmoved. Another cop, he must have been more senior, he got out of the front seat of the car and came over to us and asked me why I was creating such a scene. I was in a total state of shock. Some people nearby had witnessed what the policeman had said to me and came forward to defend me. I know I'll see that policeman again someday, she says. I still remember his face so very clearly. After the murder, all the witnesses and all the survivors were arrested, and they were held in jail for 3 months until Benazir's government fell, without access to lawyers, without access to their families. And the police, meanwhile, were all internally cleared in a police review and returned to their beats. They remain in powerful positions not only within the police force, within the federal Pakistani government, and within the upper echelon of Benazir's political party. I might just jump back to the Zia period, just for a comparison vote of where Pakistan is now. We know that the last time Zia was around, you had an American adventure in Afghanistan, and we know that that is true now again. And things match up. This government has imposed quite absolutely. This government has imposed quite sinister censorship measures since they came into office 2 years ago. Last summer they passed the Prevention of Electronic Crimes Act, which applies to anyone of any nationality across the breadth of the country, and includes a jail sentence up to 6 months for those who possess email addresses not registered in their real name. If you are found to be guilty of satirizing or spoofing or character assassinating the person of the president, that's anywhere from 3 years to 14 years. And the ostensible reason for this law is that if you are funding Al-Qaeda through PayPal, then that is the death penalty. We know also that this year 500 websites were banned in Pakistan, including Google, Facebook, Yahoo, many more. Ostensibly again because un-Islamic material existed on these websites. The Hudud ordinance, as we said, remains in Pakistan. According to the National Commission on the Status of Women report, the last time that there was a report, 80% of all women in jail in the country are there on Hudud trials, on Hudud cases. By virtue of medical evidence, it's very easy to lock a woman up on one of those crimes, but not men. Those who follow the Mukhtar Mai case will also know that quite recently she was threatened by a legislator of the ruling party to withdraw her case from the Supreme Court. This legislator came out and admitted this because he didn't see what was wrong with it, apparently. And we know that Pakistan has opened its skies to foreign planes. Last year we saw the Swat War, which turned 3 million Pakistanis into refugees within their own country. The Pakistani army and the American army killed countless of people, largely civilians. And again, another fun fact, it was during the Swat War that you will also remember Michael Jackson died. And the Sindh Assembly held a minute of silence for Michael Jackson. And every time I say this at talks, people sort of look at me with a curiosity, and I have to remind them that Michael Jackson wasn't Pakistani. He wasn't Muslim. He never sung about Pakistan. But yet not a word was said about the millions of refugees and the thousands of dead. Those who are following the drones know that over 1,000 Pakistanis, some sites, if you go on the BBC, they will tell you that they are largely civilians. But if you talk to Pakistanis, they will probably tell you that they are all civilians, have been killed since 2009 in drone flights. All of these people who are killed, supposed terrorists, are nameless, they are faceless, they are unconvicted, and they are unindicted. This month has been the most deadliest in terms of drones. So we're not even done with September yet, but this month there have been 20 drone flights that have flown over Pakistan, and I think, and I might be mistaken here, so if anyone knows, I think it's just over 100 dead. And again, I challenge anyone to find names of those people. I haven't seen them. And we know that it is this month that Pakistan has watched a fifth of its country submerged by the floods. We know that 20 million people have been affected. We know that 2 million homes have been destroyed across the Punjab and Sindh provinces. The food belt in these two provinces has been completely submerged. I think it's something like, maybe my friends from Lahore will know better, but something like one-fifth, is it, of the cotton and sugarcane crop has been destroyed. Do you know, Maliha? Yeah, it's 1/5 of something like that of the cash crops in Punjab have been destroyed. The World Health Organization estimates that 1.5 children are at risk of fatally contracting diarrhea, and we also know that this is the month when you have 20 American drone flights over the country. I know that the Pakistani Students Association wants to say something about the floods, but I might also just throw in this disturbing number. The UN estimates that if you tally how much money was given to Haiti after the earthquake, it worked out to about $450 per Haitian. And if you do the same for Pakistan after the floods, it's about $3 per person. The Pakistani government is corrupt. That's without question. Transparency International says that 70% of World Bank money for dam maintenance has been siphoned off. So I think one is perfectly rational for refusing to give to the Pakistani government. However, there are many organizations, not only in Pakistan, but abroad, that do phenomenal work. And maybe the Pakistan Students Association can talk about that. But the one I personally always talk about is Merlin. And Merlin is a medical relief organization that is based in America and the United Kingdom. I think it's merlin.org. And Merlin has been in Pakistan since 2005, since the earthquake that hit the northern regions. And they did a lot of work with the IDPs, the millions of IDPs. Last year, they're doing antenatal care, malarial care, and they're just a phenomenal organization. So if you are curious, please do look at their website. And before we do questions, do you want to, Mariam, is that all right?
Brief announcement.
Yeah? No problem.
Thank you. My name is Mariam Chugtai. I'm the president of Harvard Pakistan Student Group. We're a cross-university organization with about 400 people. We've started a university-wide campaign to increase engagement on Pakistan's issues. So it's not just about raising money, but it's about keeping Pakistan in the consciousness of people over a sustained period of time. If you're interested in joining, and I really hope you are, please visit Harvard Humanitarian Initiative's website. It's hhi.harvard.edu, or you could email me at mac312@mail.harvard.edu. Thank you.
Great.
Well, thank you, Fatima, for such a wide-ranging and candid conversation. It's question and answer time. I'll take the prerogative as chair to call the questions. There are a few rules, firstly. Please be civil. Introduce yourself and make sure each statement ends with a question. So I'll start off on my left.
Hi, my name is Shamshir Ali, and I have been an admirer of your grandfather, Bhutto Shaheed. My only worry is, like, starting from your aunt, your all family members, and all other Pakistani politicians. You guys always speak all of the problems of Pakistan, but not the grassroots problem of Pakistan, and that is education. And this government has been brutally, paying with the government, with the education problem. So what is your opinion on educating people in Pakistan? Because it's the only education which can kill Talibanization, which can kill Al-Qaeda, all these kind of stuff, and all that rural and urban differences.
I think that's absolutely. Can everyone hear me? I've not been speaking to the mic this whole time. I realise now that I've moved away from it. I think you're absolutely right, and I think the problem is that people are under the impression that education is an immediate fix-all, whereas it will take generations. Pakistan has an incredibly low literacy rate. It's officially somewhere around 40%, and the only qualification for literacy is the ability to sign your name. We also know, as you mentioned, that it's due to the fact that in large parts of the country there are no government schools. We have this great problem of ghost schools, where money is given to set up schools. A shell of a building is made. A government official cuts a ribbon, takes a picture, and no students are enrolled, no teachers are hired, no books are bought. It's because of things like that you see the Taliban increasingly popular, or various extremist groups in Pakistan, because they come in and they offer the most basic services. In the last budget of the country, in 2009-2010, 30 billion rupees were put towards the field of education, and 20 billion were put towards the field of health. That's 50 billion combined. And again, for those of you who know and who are following Pakistan, you also know that the president has set up all these, charity handout schemes in his wife's name. So there's the Shaheed Muhtarma Benazir Bhutto Income Support Fund, the Shaheed Muhtarma Benazir Bhutto Marriage Support Fund. And what these do is somebody signs up, you come, you receive 500 rupees in an envelope, and you find yourself on an election roll. But in the same budget where 50 billion rupees is put towards health and education combined, 70 billion rupees was put towards the Shaheed Muhtarma Benazir Income Support Fund.